Hello everyone, my name is Swat Ludwig and today we're going to be looking at the Lair of the Mad Mage dungeon. In this video I will be going through all three the boss fights and the mechanics, as well as not cut any of the scenes between the boss fights so you can experience the entire dungeon. Now, one of the main things to know about the Lair of the Mad Mage is that you would require at least 2 players in your party to have 120,000 power and have all the additional stats that I showed you in the cheat sheet. The reasoning behind this is at the first boss you will fail if you cannot kill the mimics fast enough, and you need at least 2 players that can melt them ASAP. At this point, I'll just like to thank my alliance who helped me make this video. In the end, I decided on using this specific version of the videos that so I can show you exactly what happens when things go wrong. We have at least 2 times where we made mistakes and that caused us to wipe the first and second boss. This should show you the mechanics that we need to see as well. And you might also notice I cower behind our tank. Greybeard's an absolutely amazing tank. The reasoning behind this is in this dungeon we have a lot of wraiths, and if you don't stay behind your tank and you do not stay near your heals, the wraiths, or in this case they call it shadows, will kill you. If you are in a weaker team, I would recommend that you stay on the platform just above this area. That will allow you to pull the bosses and not have to engage with the beholder. That way you can take your time in destroying the mobs and then solo the beholder. Well, the team can solo the beholder. That makes this fight a lot easier. Again, if you're in a decently strength team like we are here, it's no problem. At this bit, try and stay together. The next part after we kill these two groups of mobs can be tricky, and normally what we do is we have one player kite the one creature and we attack the rest as fast as possible, and then go support that player that kited the enemy. But before we get there, we first have to kill the other mobs. Okay, so here we go. We have the one player that is kiting the enemies for us, and then we can just casually go and take care of them. The reason we do that is we don't want to actually have both of them constantly healing themselves on our party members. Okay, here we go. First boss time. The first thing I would do is switch to my single target loadout, and then we would go and actually announce the colors we're going to be using. You'll notice each corner has 4 different colors: blue, yellow, purple and green. And what we do is we select those colors. The tank and the heals go to the same color. Here we go. You can see it on the left hand side. The person with the red little butterflies, as soon as they hit, well, I'll reshoot this text. Right, second attempt. So this time it's actually going to succeed. I'm just showing you the various colors there, the blue, yellow, green and purple. And what we're going to do here is this dungeon have a few different phases. The first phase is the mimics, and the second one is the cocoon. You just saw what the cocoon does. The idea behind the cocoon is once a player is in the cocoon, they spam the letter C in chat. What will happen then is the teammates will stay clear of him or her, and the healer will heal you. Then the second part, the other phase is the mimics, which a lot of teams wipe on. The mimics is a fairly simple process. You stand in the way of the mimic. If it gets close to you, you will slow it down a little bit, and then you spam your encounters and your daily to kill it. You'll notice also I have a Wanderer's thingamabob, and I use that as one of my DPS mechanisms when I get into trouble. But in this case we didn't get into trouble at all. There we've got a player that has the cocoon, so I move out of the way. The next series of mimics will appear at 50%. The first one appeared at 80%. So now you'll notice I'll start moving towards my spot to be ready for the mimics. During this phase we'll start having people randomly appear and do these red marks. Just try and avoid the red areas. You can't kill NPCs at all, so no bother fighting them. Okay, as you can see our DPS was quite busy there and we melted it. And this was the second one. Okay. Try and stay out of the red areas. Don't be like me and stay in the red areas. I know I had a very good healer, so I trusted him there, but it's not wise to do that at all. If the healer is preoccupied with someone in a cocoon, for example, you will get into trouble. And also, do not try and be separated like I'm here. Try and stay with the team. We are only gonna have a 2-round mimics here, but normally you can expect 3 rounds. There I'm hit with the cocoon, so what I'll do is I'll just spam to get the CCC in the cocoon. You'll see the healer immediately healed me, and the other players stayed out of my way. And there we go, first boss down. So if you work with a coordinated attack, this boss can be quite easy. You just need to have a good sense of teamwork. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop at the fireplace here and switch to my AoE loadout. And I'll stick to this loadout up until the second boss. Now at this part, be careful. Once you destroy these soul golems, they tend to explode, and that explosion might push you off the cliff. Can't remember if I got pushed off this time, but it happens quite a lot with me, where the explosion just bumped me off there. I nearly fell. Just bumped me off the platform. And sometimes when that cutscene comes, you're not ready, and when you come out of it, you are off the cliff. You'll notice also I keep checking the scoreboard. That is not to check whether I'm top DPS, even though it might seem that way. It is actually what happened was during this phase I was still setting up my my build. You will notice I have actually 4 different builds with the latest alternative and normal. And I was testing my builds during this time to try and maximize my DPS. And what happened was I was actually checking which areas gave me what type of DPS and where I should work on it. I always tend to wait for the entire team there. Okay, I didn't this time. The reason I do that is sometimes a newer player might aggro the golems that you don't need to aggro, and then they will be trapped in that room until they defeat it. Up until the second boss, you need to trust your heals and your tank here. So you'll notice I don't even care about getting damaged in this bit. The damage they do is not a lot, and as such the healer can keep you alive, and the tanks tend to pull most of the aggro anyway. The reason I'm mentioning that is I'm playing on a control wizard who needs to do AoE a lot, and to do that I need to be close to the enemies themselves. You'll notice I'll walk up as close as I can to them, and you'll see how much of the orange numbers I get when I do that, the crit numbers. So that's what I'm trying to do, and in the meantime I just trust my heals and my tank to do their job, which I know they will. I've got an awesome team. There, I just wasted the icy terrain. I thought there's going to be little red devils, but they never came. So basically, up until the second boss, we have situations like this where it's just a group of enemies, normally 5 or 6, and you just have to kill them. If your team is strong enough, there shouldn't be any problems. If you are in a weaker team, take your time. Don't be in a rush. If you rush, you are going to lose 1 or 2 players, and that's going to make things difficult as they try and run to get back to you. So just be patient if you're in a weaker team. Even if you're used to running in a stronger team, just be patient. Go with the pace of the slowest player. Okay, at this part I would recommend running straight to the boat. You'll notice our tank aggroes and then moves, aggroes and moves. So what I do is I run to the top and I just wait for my teammates. The tank didn't pull full aggro, so he went back. So I just wait for him to get there. And then I trust my heals to keep me alive. You'll see I'll take a lot of damage, but I also do a decent amount of damage at the same time. So I'll trust my heals and my tank to keep me alive here and just melt as fast as possible. If you are in a weaker team, it might be wiser to actually not pull the entire group to the boat and just fight the swarms one by one. But if you've got a decent DPS and heal and tank, do it this way. It makes the dungeon run a lot faster. Nice. Okay. And that's it, we're at the second boss. Now, this boss can be tricky, but I would say it's a lot easier than the other bosses. The first boss. Okay, in this boss we have two main phases. The one phase, the worm goes under the ground and forms a sinkhole. During this time we must actually break the falling rocks and use the more rocks that we do not break, the more buff the boss gets and he can do more damage. You'll notice the first time around we accidentally lost one of our players that got sucked into the wormhole or the sand hole, whatever, and then we didn't have enough DPS to actually break all the rocks and there was too many rocks, so we decided to wipe and redo it again. Okay, so the idea is break the rocks, then get onto one of those candles. The reason we get underneath the candles is the candles protect you against falling rocks, and then you just need your tank and your heal to actually protect you against the lightning that the boss gives. As you can see, we're trying to break them, but unfortunately in a minute or so, there we go, our one DPS gets sucked in, and you'll notice on the right hand side, right below defeat the ballworm, you'll notice the gigawatts just go crazy high, and it's really not worth doing it if your gigawatts is over, say, 2 gigawatts. It can be done, we have done it in the past, but it makes it a lot more difficult than it should be. What we need to do now is get under this candle, hug as a team, and then wait until that entire bar goes empty. Once it is empty, on the bar on the right hand side, the overcharge one, once it is empty, the ballworm will go underground. At that time we will be able to actually do damage to it again, but in this specific case we actually wiped. Can't remember why, but we decided to wipe. I think it was because 6 gigawatts. Remember, the second time around that 6 gigawatts will get more because more rocks will reach the boss. As you can see, if you've got a strong tank and good healing, you normally don't have much problems here, even with a large amount of overcharge that we have here. They are doing an amazing job to keep us alive. And the bar is nearly empty. So once it's empty, we should be able to go. Normally I just wait a few seconds for it to disappear. You'll see the worm itself will go underground once it's done with its lighting. There we go. That means we can go out. Don't go too close too fast because it might suck you in like it did with Graveyard there. You won't die, but it's irritating. On this part, if I get those arrows, I just try and dodge them and stay out of the lightning area, of course. Now in this case, he's actually going to suck me into the lightning area, and I will start taking damage. Normally, if you do this right, you will only have 2 phases, but if your DPS is not fast enough, you might have more, say 3 or 4 phases. I've never gone past 3 phases. So when you get the 3 phases, you will have robots or golems in the 2nd and 3rd phase. During that time, do not kill all the golems. Do kill them, but do not kill all of them. Leave at least, what I always say, leave at least 2 to 3 of them alive. The reason for that is we need the golems to actually debuff the 6 gigawatt. So if you can survive the 2nd phase with the golems, you can actually pull them closer to the boss, and when the boss does that circle swing it does, then it will actually get debuffed to well, in most cases 0, but if you only have 1 or say 2, it might be less. Depends on how high your wattage is as well, on how many you need. You'll notice I'll just try and ignore the golems in this part. It's tough, but it's the best policy. If you attack them, they'll just continue attacking you like they always do, and they also teleport, which can be a problem, knocking you into the hole. Okay, so what happened here is our tank accidentally got sucked into the hole, which basically meant we had to wipe. I'm gonna actually try a little while, but as you can see, it's not worth it. And the overcharge went to 14 gigawatts, which means these bosses do immense amount of damage here. And we just decided enough is enough. We wipe, and then you'll see on the next turn what a clean run would be like. Okay, so that was the worst case scenario, what happens when things go wrong. Now we're going to be showing you what happens when everything goes right. Not sure why I waited there, but there must have been a reason. And there we go. Just checking if my buffs are still up. I'll be doing a video regarding the buffs I use in mod 16. It should be a very short video, just explaining what foods and what other buffs I actually do use to help keep my character up. The buffs, the food buffs and drinks can be a big difference. If I can recall on my character, I believe it gives me something like 8 or 9k power, additional power, and that can be a large amount, especially if you're still low on power. If you can up your power by that amount, it will help you a great deal. But as I say, I'll do a special video, extra video about that soon. There we go, the first phase, and if I recall, this time around we actually did a very good job here. The overcharge is still very low, and we just keep monitoring the rocks and try and stay away from that little sinkhole. And the boss disappears. No, not yet, sorry. This time it just felt so easy. There we go. The boss disappears and we have 0 gigawatts of power we gave the boss, which means this phase will be very fast and quite easy. And that's what you're aiming for. If you break the rocks fast enough, then you won't have a problem with the wattage. Now some teams actually runs in a clockwise direction at the edges and then kill only the rocks in front of them. So you might want to look into that strategy if it works better for you. We actually went with a more zonal strategy here. And the worm will go down and we should be able to move out and go and attack it. That's the first phase done. Again, I get the double arrows. I try to use shift to dodge it, but this time I fail. Most of the times you would want to bunch up with the rest of the team. The reason I actually went to this side is I want to give my team combat advantage, and in this case Batch is one of our main DPS players, so I'd like to just make sure Batch has full combat advantage, and myself as well, of course, just to make sure that we get the maximum amount of DPS. Okay, I nearly messed up and let one in because of all these silly little golems that keep hammering me, and I was a bit worried about my health as well because it got a bit low, and I was hoping to survive until the worm went away, which it did, and at that time it's fine because I can just scroll. Now the main problem is just to pull all the golems there and then kill them. We don't want to kill all of them. We have 3 gigawatts, so one worm will be enough to wipe that entire wattage out, but still we would prefer to keep 2 or 3 of them. The reason behind that is you can accidentally kill one and then you still have 2 left to use for the worm to debuff him. The reason we don't leave all of them is pretty obvious, or at least once you've played it you'll realize. I'm not moving away the whole time. These golems are pushing me out from underneath the protection and from the area where my heals are protecting me, and my tank is pulling aggro, which means I can't actually stay safe. So what we do is we actually try and just thin the numbers a little bit, so we can just have 1 or 2 to deal with, or 3. I actually prefer 3, and we will have the worms out again, so I will be able to go and pull these golems that's on me towards the boss. There we go, and again, trust your heals. Okay, I don't want to be too far away. Some of these golems are aggro to me, so I don't want to be too far away when it does the swing, which is normally just after it dives into the ground like that. There we go, and you'll notice it debuffed the entire group. One of the golems stayed away. That's because when I was pushed back too far, and the golem was out of range of the ballworm. So we want to stay as close as possible in that part when the golems are on you, to keep them close to the ballworm when he does that swing, so he gets full debuffed and he gets rid of the golems fast as well. But fortunately we did it, and from here on you'll see it's quite fast melt, because the golem of the ballworm, when he has a low amount of gigawattage, is easy to kill. Okay, here we go, second boss down. Okay, there is no fireplace here, so what I do is I just switch over to my icy terrain to give me a little bit of AoE for the next part of the fight. Also, you'll notice I use IC Rays. The reason for that is it also gives me some AoE, and it's a very good DPS in this mod. More about that in my wizard build that is coming very soon. If you want, you can single target these scorpions. It's actually much more effective, but I was too lazy to switch off my icy terrain for this bit, so I just left it on. As you can see, it didn't have too much of a negative effect on us. Here's a fireplace, but I actually messed up. I just used my artifact, which means I won't be able to change my loadout, and that forces me to use the next bit, to run the next bit with my single target loadout, which is unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. As you can see, my DPS is still decent in single target loadout. It would just be ideal to actually change to your AoE part there. That's why a lot of times in this part you see wizards that actually do use the push and then really aggravate the tanks, and I understand why, as I do play tank as well. But unfortunately what happens is you accidentally use your daily and then can't switch out. I actually switch out my push for the icy terrain just to be safe and not upset my tank. This bit is usually easy to just take care of the witches, because they've got that little beam that drains your health very fast. Or hags, I think they call them hags here. And I expected another group of mobs, but I was sorely mistaken. And that's it. And here we are. We're at the second boss, or the third boss, sorry. Now, right here where we entered, as soon as you finish the boss fight, you can come back here. There's a hidden room, and there is a title that you can achieve there. Unfortunately, only one title per run, per team, so you're gonna have to decide with your team who actually gets it. Unfortunately, I already had it, and I didn't think about actually showing you where the hidden room is. I'm sorry about that. This boss fight is fairly simple. It has two parts to know about. The scorpions and the towers. The scorpions will come depending on how fast you're burning. The more scorpions will come. I would actually suggest that you take the scorpions down one by one. Do not split your DPS, almost like we did in MSVA back in the day. Do not split your DPS, just concentrate on one of them and melt it, and then switch to the other one. Unfortunately, due to the fact that the tank normally pulls the aggro of the boss, which he should do, the scorpions tend to aggro towards the DPS, which can be irritating, but it does happen, and that's why I like having scrolls in this part, because if it does kill me, I'm ready to just scroll and continue. Now your heals can pick you up, but I like to be full health after being erased, so I tend to use my scroll there. As you can see, it's fairly simple if the team works together and the tank does its job. The tank and the heals. The heals keep us alive and the tank pulls the boss away. An experienced tank will do what Greybeard does there. He does not go onto the platform itself, but just stay on the edge, allowing us to have a wide area or berth to actually do our DPS, and the tank himself not getting pulled onto the electrical area and getting damaged, causing the heals to concentrate on keeping him alive instead of us when the scorpions come. I must say the heals in the tank is doing an amazing job here. So at about, I think, at 25%, 20 or 25%, we will get the tower phase, and then we will need to burn these towers as fast as possible. Scorpions can be irritating, but just being patient helps, and it makes it a lot easier if we do what we do here as a team and actually swarm them. That way, even if it aggroes the DPS, it is such a short time period that it doesn't really matter. It will maybe get 1 or 2 shots in, and the healer, if the healer is competent, can keep you alive during that part. Right, there we go, tower time. So now what we do is I actually tend to follow the tank. We all go together to the same pillar and just melt it down. After this phase is done, we will all group together, bunch behind the tank, and the healer will protect us. The healer and the tank will protect us from the one hit that the boss can give. When the healer and tank gives a little circles, normally a yellow circle and a bunch of shields dancing around us, please stay in that area. If you're outside of that area, you will get one hit. As you can see, we melted quite fast. The charge is not that high. I've been in groups with lower that kept that charge down lower, but as long as it's not at 2/3 or more, it's normally not a problem at all. There we go. You see the protection comes up. They help us, and that's the one hit avoided. And then from there we just melt it. Quite easy. Okay, I'd just like to thank my team that ran with me here. They were really awesome, and thanks for the patience. In the end, we did it quite a decent speed, even though it could have been faster if we didn't have that little hiccup at the first and second boss. But it was all in all a easy run. Again, I would recommend doing this at least once. If you're a lower level player, ask your alliance. Sometimes they have what we do is training runs, and during the training run what we try and do is you have 4 strongish players and 1 weaker player that allows that player to actually go through the entire process with ease. Thank you everyone for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. If you would like to see a specific video, let me know. Thanks everyone, and happy gaming.